Let's talk about one of the most annoying injuries in all of running, shin splints, and what you could potentially do to avoid them. How's it going, runners? My name is Justin Thompson. I'm your average running PT, and I help the average runner achieve their own personal elite status. If that's something you guys are into, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you know when the next video comes out. So I don't know if you guys saw it, but I just recently changed the YouTube banner art on my channel, so leave me a thumbs up or a comment letting me know what you guys think about the new channel art. But what we're going to do today is talk about shin splints. So obviously shin splints are one of the most annoying injuries in all of running because sometimes they just don't want to go away. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you could potentially treat or avoid this injury so that you can continue to run without discomfort. So first things first, let's talk about what shin splints really are. So it's called medial tibial stress syndrome, and basically what that means is that there's stress on the tibia bone or your shin bone in your lower leg, right? So what is putting that stress on that shin bone? Well, here's the thing. It's an overuse injury. This doesn't happen like you like a turned ankle. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. It's something that happens and it gradually builds over time, but then suddenly you start to feel it and you're like, ah, dang it, what happened? But it didn't just happen in a single instant. It happened over repeated stress and overuse over time. But why? Why is it being overused? And this is where we get into a good evaluation and an honest evaluation as to what's going on with your running. Okay, so what is actually happening and what is causing this overuse to occur? Is it because of running form? Is it because of a weakness? Is it because of a lack of mobility, extensibility, pliability in soft tissues and connective tissues? Is it because of poor nutrition? All of these things can definitely be contributing to a shin splint problem. And then once you kind of start to dial in what that problem is, then you can start to figure out what can actually be done about it, right? So you don't know what to do unless you know what the problem is. All right, so what is causing that overuse? It's not always too much mileage. Sometimes it is. It's not always a specific running form problem. Sometimes it is. And it's not always a strength deficit, or it's not always a soft tissue problem, but sometimes it is. And that's what makes the evaluation part of this so important and trying to figure this stuff out. That way you know what you can actually start to do. And so going straight into the next thing, is rest necessary? Well, as I said, sometimes it can be a too much mileage problem, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes it is more of a structural issue. Sometimes it's more of a strength issue, a functional issue. But is rest necessary? So, if it's an overuse injury, we need to figure out how we can reduce the use. So yes, rest is a necessary thing, but how do you actually accomplish that rest? It may be that you have to take a little bit of time off. Okay? It may be that you have to take a week, 2 weeks, a month if it's really bad, and take that time off. But it may just be that you have to find some other way to offload the problematic tissue. Let's say if it's your anterior tibialis muscle, the big muscle on the front side of your shin that does dorsiflexion of your foot. Okay? Let's say it's that one that's pulling really hard on your shin bone. We have to figure out how can we offload it? What are the strategies that we can use to offload that muscle? Well, let's get into running form. So if we take that specific example and look at running form, One of the problems that I see a lot with shin splints, is that people will be reaching out way in front of their body, heel striking, and then their foot hits the ground. Okay, so their heel strikes first, and then their foot goes down. But what happens whenever that heel strikes? The muscles on the front side of their shin, their anterior tibialis muscle, has to try and control that movement down to the ground. So eccentrically controlling that movement to the ground. Otherwise, you'll just keep hearing a lot of clapping of the foot. Whenever we are eccentrically trying to control that, that's a lot of stress on that muscle on the front of the leg. And therefore, if it's a lot of stress on the muscle, which is attached to the bone, it is a significant amount of stress on that bone as well. Okay, so we have to kind of address, is it a running form problem, and how can we rest it by changing the running form? Maybe that means it's from going from a heel striking pattern to more of a midfoot pattern, or maybe it's just not even changing the heel strike, but at least bringing the foot a little bit closer underneath the center of mass, so that you're not reaching and then clapping that foot down, not having to eccentrically control quite so much. Okay, so that's for the anterior tibialis. There's a bunch of muscles that attach around the tibia, around the shin bone. Okay, so you have to kind of think about, where is this pain coming from? What muscles are pulling? And what is my running form looking like? If my running form is more of a forefoot strike, then it's probably not going to be coming from an anterior tibialis problem. It's probably not going to be coming from that particular muscle. It'll probably be coming from one of the smaller muscles that attach to the back side of the tibia. Okay, so running form is definitely a consideration, and figuring out how you can maybe change that in order to allow some rest on those tissues that are stressful, that are causing stress. So because we've already talked about running form, we're already starting to get a little bit into the treatment methods and things like that. So that is definitely something that I would coach and help people to change that running form. That is part of the treatment that I would implement. Now, if I figured out that there is certain stress coming from certain muscles, that may be because those muscles are tight, that may be because those muscles are weak. I don't know. But one thing that I would do is that I would make sure that they are not lacking flexibility, lacking extensibility, or using the word that I used in a previous video, lacking pliability, and making sure that they have that feel of like the raw chicken feel, as opposed to the beef jerky kind of a feel where it's all dried and tough and easily, ripped, right? So treatment may include soft tissue work that gets into those muscles really, really deep. It would probably include things like foam rolling for the person to do on their own, so that my manual work doesn't just kind of revert back to where it was. They are continuing to maintain that soft tissue mobility throughout. And then it will probably include some strengthening, some controlled strengthening, because if it's an overuse problem and we're trying to rest it, we don't want to over-strengthen. We still want to provide a stimulus for increased strength, but we want to make sure that we're doing it at a level that is tolerable to the tissues, and that it's going to provide a stimulus for healing and not another stimulus for overuse, right? So there's this balance that you kind of have to find, that you kind of have to play with. Now, if we take it all the way back, it may not be anything having to do with the lower leg. Whenever we're in our trying to figure out why phase here, so whenever we're here, we may find something that is a problem up or down the chain. So maybe there's a problem in the feet that needs to be addressed, that because of the foot problem is leading to too much stress at the lower leg. Or maybe there's a hip problem, so go up the chain, there's a hip problem, and now the lower leg is having to provide more control, or trying to control something that the hip is not doing. Okay, so if there's these compensations that are being made, then that can be a cause of shin splints as well. So getting the full kind of evaluation, that's one of the most important things here, is you have to make sure that what you are treating is actually what's creating the problem. So again, the key with shin splints is just making sure that you are treating the problem and not just the symptoms, okay? So I hope that that was helpful. Leave me a comment down below if you have any very specific questions, or you can even send me an email if you're having some sort of problem with this injury or potentially some other one. I really want to be able to help you guys out as much as possible. Also, leave me ideas for videos. If you like seeing things about like these injuries and things like that, then I would love to help you out with those things. If you would rather me stick to, my training, or, things like talking about the MAF method or low heart rate training or things like that, then let me know if that's what you guys prefer as well. Now head on out there, seek your elite. God bless, and I will see you next time.